before we wrap here?
I just want to get this off my chest. So, like, I read comics as a kid growing up. I read comics as a teenager. After high school, when I graduated in 2000, I kind of stopped reading comics. But I started going back to the stores around 2008, went to a comic shop. And Criminal is one of the first books that kind of like got its hooks in me again and made me read comics regularly again. So it feels like it's kind of coming full circle for me, because that led to me being on this podcast. So being able to talk to you, and thank you for that. Just want to say
great.
that. So thanks for all the work, man. I appreciate it.
Thanks. That's huge. Yeah, when we announced Criminal that summer that it was going to come out in the fall, we had that teaser thing that we had made, which was like the first time that I was like, I'm so sick of people announcing comics and just showing you the first 3 pages. I'm like, let's make a movie trailer.
Hi, I'm Ed Brubaker. I couldn't be at the New York Comic Con this year. Something came up that I couldn't get out of, but I really want to tell you all about my new comic with Sean Phillips, Fatale, coming from Image in January. Sean and I are known for our crime noir comics like Sleeper, Incognito, and Criminal, but Fatale is a different kind of book for us. It's an epic crime and horror story spanning from modern times back to the 30s. It starts with a detective who stumbles across an ancient secret. It's got strange cults, like something out of an old Hammer horror film or a Lovecraft story. It's got lots of murder and mayhem, and a woman who may or may not be the living incarnation of the femme fatale. Oh yeah, and there's monsters too. So anyway, Fatale, it's coming from Image in January. Buy it. Buy it. Come on, guys, not the hat.
And that was like the first thing we did. I wrote that before I wrote the comic, and Sean drew it before he drew. And I got that printed up like as like a little like 8-page giveaway, and had thousands and thousands of them. And I would just go to the Marvel booth whenever anybody big was signing, when no one knew who I was really. Actually, I don't know. I had just brought Bucky back, and I had bought a shirt off the internet that said, rule number 1, Bucky stays dead. And so I was wearing that at the Marvel booth, and Stan Lee was doing a signing. So there was like 1,000 people, and I just walked down the line, just like giving it to people. And it was funny because people would look at my shirt, and then they'd look at the thing and like, oh yeah, this looks cool. And so it was just like, that's how I was like, trying to market it though. And then I remember I was supposed to go meet Stan Lee, and his bodyguard wouldn't let me go into the back room. And he like crossed his arm, and I'm like, no, I work at Marvel. He's like, I don't care. You're not going back there. And I was like, damn. And then he looked at my shirt, and he's like, rule number 1, Bucky stays dead. What, you don't like Brubaker's run? And I'm like, I'm Brubaker. And he's like, oh, cool. Nice to meet you, man. And I'm like, well, can I go meet Stan? And he's like, no. But it was so funny, because it was like, that's great. But yeah, that really, like Criminal. It's funny when you were talking about Birds of Prey, and you mentioned being a huge Love and Rockets fan, because I was the first like huge Love and Rockets fanboy when I was like 15. I used to just be like their little tag along at Comic Cons. Like I met Jaime Hernandez like when he was doing like a signing, and nobody cared, and I just always loved their stuff. But it's funny because having been around comic stores and worked in comic stores growing up, I knew that like people in alt comics really look down on mainstream comics, and they don't understand that the same people buy all the same stuff. Just like, I like, American Horror Story and The Sopranos, like I can like stuff that it's like, you can like things on different levels for different reasons. I like Tolkien, but I also like Raymond Chandler,
Sure. Yeah.
It's funny because I have so many friends from indie comics who are such snobs about stuff. And I'm just like, you don't even realize the people you're selling these books to don't just buy mouse in your book, like comics. Comics
exactly.
Are, it's like the people who go to the Fast and Furious also go to like a David Fincher movie,
exactly.
So it's just funny. Yeah, exactly. I'm a huge Fast and Furious fan, but I mean, they are what they are.
I'm clipping that. Clipping that. That's great.
Yeah.
We got him.
No, that's the worst one.
Yeah. Cool. Well, Paul, I appreciate you saying that.
Mhm.
I've got a whole shelf of just your books over here. Like, big, huge fan. You said something earlier about like how you guys basically at this point have books that you can hand out to people, and that's pretty much what I do with a lot of your books. So I want to say thank you
Thanks.
for like reintroducing like crime comics into like the mainstream, or at least the mainstream for comic book fans,
Yeah.
because
Mhm.
it's such a breath of fresh air when like everything's superhero, everything's, we said auto-bio books, they're great, but like, yeah, your books really are like a breath of fresh air every time you and Sean drop one. So thank you
Yeah.
for continuing to make books,
Oh,
because
thanks.
they're just the light of comics sometimes.
Well,
for
I'm
some
glad
reason.
that
So,
you guys liked the new one, because that was one where I finished it and I was like, man, this is so different than anything we've ever done that I wonder if our readers will actually like it. I was like,
I think that's why I like it.
I think James
Yeah.
Tynan was
Yeah.
the first person to read it, actually, because I sent it to him a little bit like, I'm not going to say anything, just read this. And he wrote back and just loved it. And I was like, oh, thank God. But yeah, it's like, we spent so much. That's the one thing about not publishing things, like as you're doing them, like through single issues, is like you get about 90 pages into a book and you're like, wait, did I make a wrong decision 20 pages ago and I didn't realize it? Or can I pull this off? Or and you get so deep in it that like you have to get it, the finished edited version, and get it to like 5 or 10 people you trust before you're like, okay, I can pick it up.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you ever need proofreaders, just let me
Yeah.
know. I'm happy. You got my email. But no, this one is great. But I think, like Paul said, the variety of like some of the stories here, like I could read Reckless for forever, but it is nice to get like a Night Fever, and now we've got this Where the Body Was. I appreciate the changing up of things a little bit, even if it all is still kind of revolved around murder and mystery and stuff. It's still very good.
Yeah,
So,
the next book that comes out next summer is really weird, like sort of satanic panic related a little bit.
Okay.
And then
we didn't get to it. I was going to ask about occult stuff.
Yeah,
but
after that one, I think like the plan right now is I've got like an outline for an original criminal graphic novel, like a brand new one, which with a brand new main character for the first time in like 10 years. So
Cool.
I'm kind of psyched about that, and that I finally had like one where I was like, oh yeah, we haven't done one of these yet, and like a noir genre we haven't yet completely tackled.
Well, all right, before you start to spoil everything you've got planned for the next 10 years, I'm going to wrap up our show here.